Shabbat Shalom. I did turn this on, right? Yes, there we are. Just got a little out of position there. I wonder why. I mentioned a few weeks ago, and we've been working on this together, a little bit on Friday, a little bit on Shabbat morning, the idea of what does it mean to be the children of our ancestors, the B'nai Avot. We talked a number of times about what it means to be B'nai Avraham, to be the children of Abraham. We talked about the idea of having the connection to Adonai, the deep faith that Abraham had. We talked about his deep passion for justice. We talk about his wonderful hospitality, his openness and caring for the stranger. This week, with Toldot, we move to the next generation, the children of Isaac, of Yitzchak. What does it mean to be a child of Isaac? Abraham is the easy one, right? He is the famous one. He is the one who started it all. He is the one about whom we have so many detailed stories and expressions of his character. But Yitzchak, what do we know about him except that he was Abraham's son, or that he was Jacob's father? What about his identity in and of himself? Well, we actually know quite a bit. It gets sandwiched in between the stories of him and his father and the stories of him and his sons. But the largest portion of his life that we are able to see that is unique, distinct to him, that he adds in a way that is new in the entire story of the Torah, is Isaac the husband. Isaac is the first person who is actually marked by the treatment of his spouse in a way that is different than all of the other patriarchs during this time period. For example, there is only one spouse. How many wives did Abraham have? 2.5, depending upon how you count the last one whom he married after the passing of Sarah, whether that was Hagar come back or whether it was a new woman. 3, 2 at one time for at least a while, and 1 additionally later on. How many wives did Jacob have? 4. Yes, everyone remembers Rachel and Leah. But what about Bilhah and Zilpah, who also sired 4 of the additional tribes? Right? It would be important to remember them, or else our wheel up there would be incomplete. How many wives did Isaac have at any point in his life? Just 1. Rivkah. Just 1, Rivkah. And what do we know about the relationship? What do we find out just at the end of Chayei Sarah when Isaac first meets Rivkah after she has traveled all the way back to become his wife through this arranged marriage system? What do we hear as his reaction to her? He loves her. Now, yeah, of course, a man loves his wife. No. Nowhere does it say that Adam loved Chava, loved Eve. Nowhere does it say that Noah loved his wife. Nowhere does it say explicitly that Abraham loved Sarah. We can infer that, of course. We can try to assume that. But the Torah chose to reserve the first expression of love from a husband to his wife for Isaac. This is the marker of his character, to love his wife, to see her as his beloved, his, as we mentioned in Lachad Dodi, his dear one to him. And just in case you think that love here might mean only, affection. Indeed, the word ahava can cover a wide range of attitudes in biblical Hebrew. What do we find, again, uniquely among the patriarchs? A demonstration of affection. We never hear about Abraham and Sarah hugging or kissing. We never hear about Jacob, and even Rachel and Leah and the others of his household being affectionate towards one another. But what do we hear about Isaac? That in fact he is so affectionate with his wife, when he should have been a little bit more undercover as they were trying to pass as brother and sister, that he lets the cat out of the bag, that Avimelech is able to recognize them as being husband and wife precisely because he cannot contain his demonstrations of affection for her. That is how powerful his love for her is, that even when his life and her life is on the line, he just can't hide how he feels about her. And we see that throughout this relationship, Isaac's love for his wife is the dominant theme. Just as Abraham's love for the stranger and those around, his love for justice was a dominant theme for him, for Isaac, his love for his wife is the most powerful marker of his character that we see consistently throughout the stories of his life. This becomes a template. This becomes a lesson for how a Jewish husband treats his wife, that he treats her with love, that he treats her with affection, and with respect. Because there's one other aspect that we know about Isaac and Rivka, and that's that they disagree about who the best boy is. They both have their own favorites, if you will. Isaac is playing favorites towards Esau, and Rivka is playing favorites towards Jacob. Now, playing favorites is not a great thing to do, as we're going to find out even more in the next generation with the sale of Joseph into slavery. But setting that error of parenthood aside for a moment, we see that Isaac nonetheless allows Rivka to have her favorite. And he does not tell her, "How dare you favor this younger one over the one I prefer? How dare you express affection for him when it is Esau, my firstborn, that will follow me?" Instead, it simply tells us Isaac liked Esau, Rivka liked Jacob. They both disagree that they like Esau's wives, but in the matter of the two sons, they respectfully disagree. And in this, Isaac sets a template that spouses do not have to agree about everything. They are allowed to have differences of opinion. They are allowed to even be diametrically opposed on some things. Yes? Yes? So, so whether or not anyone knew exactly what had been foretold at the time that Rivka was pregnant, does that mean that you should show favoritism to one child over another? Exactly. Even if you know this child will become the leader of a major corporation, or this child will become the president of the Senate, that doesn't mean I'm going to love you more than I love your brother who is going to have a less fancy job. No, of course not. And that is actually the one place where Isaac and Rivka do not quite hit the highest mark of relationship that we would strive for as Jewish husbands and wives. They never talk enough about the problems they are having with their two sons. They each respect the other's position, but they also don't respect it enough to have the hard conversation and to say, "Look, Isaac, I know that you like Esau, but he is up to no good. And this is not somebody who is going to follow in your footsteps." Or for Isaac to say, "Rivka, I know you like Jacob, but Esau is the firstborn, and I owe it to him to help him as the firstborn to grow, and that will never happen if we treat him as second class." They never have that conversation to reconcile their issues, and that means that when it comes time for Isaac to bless his sons, and he chooses to bless Esau, Rivka subverts the act of blessing, which leads to 20 years of exile for Jacob and a fracturing of the family. If the two had talked to each other and had found a way to reconcile their different views of the two sons, found a way to talk about it and to truly come together, then perhaps we could have avoided the separation of our family at that point. It will need to wait for the next generation before the family can truly be reconciled. But that is for another conversation. Isaac is blind, yes.
Isaac is blind. What kind of relationship did Isaac and Rebekah have with his ability?
We don't know, but we do know at that moment they were prepared to take advantage of his blindness because they thought they knew what was right. Rather than discussing it, they exploited it. And that is, like I said, with all of the greatness that Isaac is able to show, and Rivka as well, at that moment, they do not quite hit the bullseye of what we hold up as our proper behavior.
I think in the time before that, as he goes blind, what was their relationship like?
Specifically, no, but like I said, we do see multiple times where the good relationship between Isaac and Rivka is very healthy and a wonderful template. Yes?
You said they were respectful of each other's disagreement. It's actually trying to correct the other person and undermining their respect for their opinion.
Yes, but if you listen very carefully, I emphasized Isaac was respectful of the disagreement that Rivka had. Rivka, not as much. That is to say, Rivka does in the end undermine what Isaac is trying to do. She is willing to accept it in the meantime when there was no push come to shove. But at the end, she shows that she does not respect his opinion quite enough to stay out of what he is trying to do. Which, like I said, is where they just fall short at the end. But we have to focus on where they succeeded for most of their years of building a house together, a house that had explicit love and explicit affection and explicit respect. And though they made some mistakes, the balance of their life was enough to produce Jacob, who would eventually be able to reconcile many of their mistakes, make some new ones of his own, and lead us towards the becoming of our nation. Shabbat Shalom.